Namaste everyone. We will explore today the obsessive compulsive personality disorder. To discuss the subject today, we have with us psychoanalysis consultant Mr. Himanshu Vaidya. Namaste sir.
Namaste.
So can we start with what obsessive compulsive personality disorder is all about?
The word suggests two things, that it is a personality disorder involving obsessions and compulsions.
Okay.
Obsessions are intruding thoughts which force themselves upon the mind of the person, even if the person doesn't want to think those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So they are compulsive psychological repetitions happening in the mind against the will of the person.
Right, right.
While compulsions are those actions which the person repeatedly does. So
Mm-hmm.
obsessions refers to the repetitiveness of intruding thoughts, and compulsions refers to the repetitiveness of actions. And at times person may have only one of them, but the most common is to have both of them.
Okay.
And this personality disorder is a disorder where the person has a very high insistence for orderliness,
Mm-hmm.
for perfection,
Okay.
for control over the other person,
Right.
and uh, there is also a very strong element of uh, at times religiosity or guilt in the person.
Okay.
But essentially, the disorder is about orderliness, perfectionism, and uh, too much of interpersonal control, difficulty in delegating something, but if you delegate, then go for micro control. And this happens in a way that the person's occupational and personal life is impaired.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, this is a difficulty of intrusive repetition at the level of thought or at the level of action, where the person feels almost helpless, that even if he wants to get out of that repetitive cycle, he is not able to do so.
Right.
Onto the person either at the level of thought or at the level of action or both.
Okay.
And this creates a very difficult time for the person.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we are referring to the intensity of the problem, which is
Mm-hmm.
less than obsessive compulsive disorder. So we have a personality disorder and not a disorder
Okay.
of the classical DSM type.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is that the obsessive compulsive disorder may be episodic, whereas the obsessive compulsive personality disorder is chronic and long standing, not episodic. But the intensity is much lower compared to the classical obsessive compulsive disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more like a type of personality which does cause impairment, and therefore we call it a personality disorder. But in terms of the episodic disorder, this is chronic and non-episodic and much lesser in intensity compared to the classical OCD.
Right, right. And what is the psychoanalytical explanation of causation of this disorder?
Uh, each school in psychoanalysis has its own way of explaining the obsessions and compulsions. We are essentially dealing here with the difficulty of repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, repetition, according to Freud, is a manifestation of the death instinct. And therefore, later in his life, he conceptualized this as a death instinct phenomena where primarily any system wants to keep repeating something that it is doing and not change over to something else. And life energy, the freedom, the dynamism, the spontaneity of life energy is not able to overcome this inert matter-like repetitive mode of functioning of that energy.
Okay.
So that is one Freudian explanation in terms of life and death energy, that the repetitiveness of death energy is not overcome by the ever new, ever fresh, ever creative, ever liberating and moving forward and pleasurable life energy force.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one explanation of repetition, and obviously that repetition is found in OCPD also, lesser in intensity compared to OCD, but still the phenomena remains the same, although weaker in intensity. So one explanation is the life energy, the libido, not able to overcome the repetitiveness of thanatos, the death energy, the death instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Freud gave himself the second explanation. In fact, the second I am talking about actually is the first explanation that he gave, and that was based upon Oedipus. That he conceptualized that if the Oedipus is not uh, rightly resolved, the person is struck there. He is not able to give up his Oedipal object, therefore not able to stop the castration anxiety and move forward as a mature, sexually mature person with genital sexuality completely resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the Oedipus remains open, the castration anxiety remains active, the Oedipal guilt remains active, the possibility of Oedipal loss and Oedipal pain also remains active, it is not worked through.
Okay.
The envy also remains active,
Mm-hmm.
and the person tries to move forward, but because of this part unresolved element in the Oedipus, anxiety keeps getting generated, and the person regresses in part to the prior anal phase.
Right.
And in the anal phase is this whole phenomena of repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Because from a psychosexual developmental standpoint, the repetition as a phenomena is in the anal phase.
Mm-hmm.
So the anxiety of the Oedipal phase and part regression to the anal phase, that phenomena, what it does is the anxiety which is generated in the Oedipal phase is used to power the repetitiveness in the anal phase. Now, what will get repeated in the anal phase will depend on the other dynamics of the anal phase.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the anal phase, apart from repetition, you have the problem of greed. If greed is not resolved, we get into hoarding. We also have the element of orderliness in the anal phase. If that is not resolved, we get into very high order or very high disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is the non-resolved Oedipus generating anxiety, creating regression, the person going back to the anal phase, taking the anxiety from the Oedipal phase into the anal phase to power up the repetition, and the subject of repetition is chosen based upon other elements of the anal phase.
Right.
That would be the second explanation of OCPD,
Mm-hmm.
also an explanation for OCD, but it is a OCPD.
Mm-hmm.
The intensity will be different.
Right.
Now, one of the differences between OCPD and OCD, on which not everyone agrees, but some people think that way, is to say that OCD may involve the anxiety of the open split, the Kleinian open split, as well as the anxiety of unresolved Oedipus.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in OCPD, we may be dealing only with the unresolved Oedipus. The split is by and large resolved. Now, this is not a universal rule, but as a rule of thumb, many people believe in this explanation that one of the reasons that explains the difference in intensity between OCD and OCPD is uh, the split being open in OCD and also the unresolved Oedipus, while in OCPD the split is successfully dealt with, only the Oedipus is unresolved.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we might see the same phenomena of OCPD in mild OCD also.
Okay.
And in some cases, we may be looking at strong OCD also without split, only with Oedipus. So those permutations and combinations always are possible to find in reality. But this is something that many people believe is true. I am not sure still whether it is actually true. I don't really have data of a large sample, but it's believed by many people that the split is resolved, Oedipus is not resolved, and therefore you have OCPD and not OCD. This is the second explanation. The Kleinians believe that the split is partially resolved, and therefore, if the split is partially resolved or under stress, the split is reopened partially, then OCPD is likely because the anxiety from the split will go into the anal phase.
Mm-hmm.
It is anxiety going forward instead of coming backward from the Oedipus.
Right, right.
So slightly the path of anxiety is different. It is coming from a phenomena prior to the anal stage into anal stage, whereas in the Freudian explanation, it is coming from a phase subsequent to the anal phase back into the anal phase. So in Kleinian conceptualization, it will be the partially resolved split, generating anxiety, getting into the anal phase, and thereby after into repetition. Kohut calls it the development of unhealthy self,
Mm-hmm.
because of which the ego is not able to repress the anxiety completely, and therefore the anxiety which is generated gets into the anal phase and gets into repetition. So essentially most people would agree that the repetition of the obsession and compulsion is essentially a cage to bind anxiety,
Okay.
and therefore the solution is not to stop it forcibly, the compulsion and obsession, which anyway is not possible, but even otherwise, the solution is not to stop it by force or by practice, but go back and switch off the anxiety where it is being generated.
Right, right.
Whether it is generated in the Oedipal phase or in the split, or more primary of split, or somewhere else, wherever the source of anxiety is, switch off the source of anxiety and the obsession and compulsion will fall by itself.
Right, right.
So this is one explanation. The ISTDT explanation has to do with the murderous and torturous rage or guilt, which creates this anxiety and self-defeating repetitions.
Mm-hmm.
So these are some of the explanations that we have for OCPD, and there is also an element of abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
So one good explanation is because the OCPD also tries to control the person, other person in the relationship very, very strongly in order to prevent abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
So the OCPD person uh, at the surface looks like a very dominating person. He wants to dominate the other person completely and completely control that person. But there may be underlying fear of abandonment, of which this control is only a facade.
Mm-hmm.
That on the surface is the quest for control, but below it is the fear of abandonment. That if I don't control this person completely, there is a possibility of abandonment. And lastly, some psychoanalysts believe that it may have to do with either the castration anxiety only, not castration anxiety uh, in a very sexual sense, but in the sense of pain. in a metaphorical sense, that the perfectionism may be because the parents would have been unduly strict and harsh for any mistake the person commits. And therefore, the perfection that we see in OCPD may just be a tactic to avoid the scolding and consequent pain inside.
Right.
So these are the possible explanations of genesis of OCPD, and in cases we might find not one but more than one explanation would be at play and necessary to explain the full pathogenesis of the case that we have before us.
Right. Right. So, how does psychoanalysis proceed with healing of this personality disorder?
Psychoanalysis typically goes with 2 to 3 days per week, 2 years.
Okay.
That's a rule of thumb. Some people may take slightly more, some people may take slightly less, but this would be the rule of thumb. This is not something easy to cure, and uh, the root of it may not be so easy to face or experience. So even when you start going deep in therapy and you are near the root of it, it may become unbearable as you go near the root of it.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, uh, if the person is fragile, we have to go in a cohesion way. Otherwise, uh, very strangely, it looks as though OCPD personality is a strong, obstinate, stubborn kind of a personality. But often we see corresponding, not corresponding, but accompanying that so-called strong element, a very fragile ego.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are encountering the fragile spectrum of this PD, then we have to go for a cohesion for a long time and only then get into interpretative Freudian work or Kleinian work.
Okay. Okay.
But if we are looking at a fairly strong, uh, high ego strength person, we can shorten or remove the cohesion part and straight away go into the Freudian or the Kleinian interpretations and then move forward. Another important element here is the element of behavioral practice,
Okay.
because the element of behavioral practice also helps the person in fortifying the insights that he gets into theory.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, One important element there also is of the meaning of it. So some people have also used narrative therapies
Mm-hmm.
of exploring the meaning of what is being done and looking at it from multiple perspectives. So this may be complementing to the main psychoanalytic work, but essentially we are looking at psychoanalytic psychotherapy with some self-work to fortify the insights into action.
Okay. Right. Right. And holistic healing is something we hear today all the time. Is there a way holistic healing approach can help in healing of this personality disorder?
Definitely, because essentially we are dealing with an anxiety spectrum disorder. Whether we prefer to call it so or not, it's a different issue. But we are definitely dealing with an anxiety spectrum issue. So the first thing that we need to do is to address that anxiety, and often accompanying that anxiety is some sort of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
For this, for addressing anxiety, for bringing in relaxation, for addressing the guilt, uh, we have many efficient tools in the holistic healing basket.
Okay.
Some homeopathic drugs work very well on uh, OCPD clients. There are very good practices with Reiki, pranic healing, yoga, pranayama, also in some sort of idol worship practices, which help the person to calm down and reduce his overall chronic anxiety levels. We also have some good practices in music and some groups which allow you to express out whatever you are anxious at. The self-help groups or the social support groups. All of this, they sort of complement what we are doing otherwise. And of course, if something goes very wrong, medication always is there, no doubt about it. But short of that, if we are in the mild to moderate range, these holistic healing tools, they help you a great deal in calming the person and enhancing his quality of life till the healing is going on, and also accelerate the healing process per se. So that's how we can actually look at a full basket of healing tools, the central psychoanalytic work added to this set of holistic healing tools.
Right. And I'm thinking, how is patient education important in the context of this disorder?
It is very important because the first thing the person has to be told is why, according to us, he is doing what he is doing. And what are the features of the problem he is living with.
Mm-hmm.
So that he realizes many of these features which he may otherwise think to be normal, characteristics of his personality, he is just different. It is not so. It is a sickness, he is not just different. Because it causes impairment. So, the first is to clearly tell him these are the problem areas on which you have to work. This is the price you have paid. This is what will aggravate. This is what is likely to heal.
Mm-hmm.
With this very basic information given to the person becomes very clear and very calm and relaxed.
Okay.
Because then he is knowledgeable about what is happening to him.
Mm-hmm.
Then, with the help of scientific psychoeducation that is being done, he can choose the good holistic healing tools. He can choose the good social support groups. He can choose certain meditative techniques, certain forms of relaxation like hypnosis relaxation works very well. Relaxation using Reiki works very well. Looking at the repetitiveness element of it, anything that calms in terms of music or anything that provides a detour away from that anxiety and the repetition is welcome.
Right.
So when we say all this, and also we uh, think out with the person, what best can he do to defer the impulse, if at all it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, it may be too strong to defer, but if it is possible, what best can be done to defer the impulse? All of this, plus what works and does not work on you. How to find out the precipitating factors, and then in future become aware about them the moment you see, even from a distance, the precipitating factor getting active.
Right.
So the whole management of it, the do's and don'ts, the following up sincerely of the central healing process, complementing with the holistic healing process, adding to it the social aspect of designing one's life so that the price one pays of one's disorder is minimized, choosing an occupation or a kind of schedule which is more suited to the person.
Mm-hmm.
All of this helps the person to a great extent, and it's very easily doable by adequate psychoeducation. It's something I think we are uh, very unnecessarily missing out. It's a low hanging fruit in healing. That you just do psychoeducation for 1 or 2 hours once or twice, and the return on investment is very large on psychoeducation of the patient and psychoeducation of the caregiver.
And the last one is, what should the family members of caregivers do if they are helping someone with this disorder?
Uh, First, they have to become more tolerant, more positive, and more humorous about it.
Mm,
If they don't get on that route, it is very easy to become irritable, angry, and in the fighting mood with the person with OC.
okay.
Because in OC, you see not only repetitiveness, not only you see irrationality of repetitiveness, you also see a obstinacy, a stubbornness, and a defiance which irritates. It's almost as though the person is putting anxiety and rage in you through projective identification.
Okay.
And therefore, it is very necessary that caregivers don't get irritable and they don't get angry.
Mhm.
Because the psychological infection through a variety of psychological processes is very much possible.
Mhm.
So the first is they have to do something so that they remain positive and happy.
Mhm.
Two, they have to let go of the price of this OC because uh, a person with OCPD is going to act in certain ways for which there is going to be a price, either monetary or non-monetary.
Okay.
It is not a free of cost sickness where something is happening only inside the person. This is a sickness where the inside will make the person do something outside and that will create a problem in the inside of the caregiver.
Mhm.
So, uh, the caregivers have to get themselves into a calm, composed, positive, humorous, and a letting go state of mind. Two, they have to be careful about the do's and don'ts. What aggravates, what heals, and correspondingly go on that route. Three, exact reporting of what is working and not working to the healer. Fourth, observing if they can what is precipitating it so that the healing can become more focused and we can have a neutral third party opinion apart from the person himself. Then we have uh, the family members or the caregivers helping the person in finding holistic healing sources, encouraging the person to practice the holistic healing at home or wherever he wishes to,
Mhm.
and not criticizing him for or making fun of him or mocking him or putting him to shame when he is trying to practice holistic healing. This often is the case, unfortunately. And lastly, allow the person to create uh, a kind of a schedule where the price of his problem is minimized. So if he does not want to go to certain social events or go to some particular places, facilitate that and not get into a persecutory mode about it. And lastly, uh, make sure that they have adequate amount of entertainment, humor, and time apart from being with the patient, so
Mhm.
that they don't develop secondary problems of minor depression, anxiety, or irritation.
Okay.
The caregiving should not create new patients.
Mhm.
So addressing the long-term health in a preventive, predictive way of the caregivers is very important. All these aspects we can manage much better if we get into the psychoeducation of the caregivers.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Himanshu Vaidya, for sharing your knowledge with us. We have covered today obsessive compulsive personality disorder. With this episode, we completed the series of psychoanalysis and DSM-5. Do watch our coming videos and write to us at hvindia@gmail.com. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.